We're kind of 3 years into kind of emphasizing it. We're seeing some progress with it, but it's amazing how much you have to go over and over again in what we're doing, almost every workshop we do, stressing the collaboration. And finally, we are really committed to reaching out to Greater Buffalo in any ways we can. We have a lot of connections we're starting to develop with not only our partners, but through other charter schools or different things like that. The more we can slip them into some of our affinity groups, the more we can get them maybe into those summer camps with a STEAM grant or something like that, the more enriched we think we are as a consortium, but the more enriched we think our schools are as well. So that's us. And we wanted to allow about 10 minutes for questions, so we've got them. We've had some good questions already, so fire away.
I wonder, do all schools participate equally? Do you have a point person within each school that publicizes the programs, or you talked about growing organically? Do you care about that? I guess you have to show the foundations that they're all participating to some extent.
Yes.
Yeah, they all participate to some extent. Some participate more in certain areas, I guess is what it comes down to. And it's funny because they all participate differently over time. I guess it depends on who you talk to within the schools, who is the head of the school at the time, what teachers you're connecting to. But they all participate in one way or another.
One of the challenges we get is from either the chief financial officers of the schools or the boards that say, well, why are we spending $10,000 bucks? What are we getting out of this? And so every year we create this chart that goes back to the schools that says, well, out of that $10,000 you receive maybe $120,000 of money back. So we're just having to justify ourselves all the time, but we're also working very hard to get that message out. You know, we just introduced Monica's program and critical coffees. We know it's out in some of the schools, we know it's not in some of the others.
And one of the tools we use is we've restructured our website. So our website is kind of the hub for all of this, and so it makes that communication a little bit easier. For example, all of our professional development is in one tab where they can go for diversity, technology signs up and whatnot, science and whatnot, and you know, it's just we try to keep it all in one spot. Same thing with, you know, our conferences, employment opportunities, all that thing. So this becomes kind of our electronic hub. So we can just send the link to the head of school, they can send it out, and it gets communicated that way.
Question. Can you talk more about the challenges in collaboration with faculty? Because from my perspective, it seems like you guys really are going to be able to see the trends amongst all the schools. So I would naturally want to trust you and say, okay, well, let's collaborate. And I hear the other piece of it where it's like you don't want to diminish anyone's competitive edge because these are schools that are competing with each other. So how do you get them past that to see that, you know, everyone's on like team education? Like, what are some of those challenges that you guys have rubbed up against?
I'll speak to that. A lot of the teachers don't think at that level, which is interesting.
The school heads do.
The school heads do.
But the teachers generally don't.
They just want to find like-minded teachers and learn from each other and help the kids, for the most part. There are some of those teachers that have been around since the dawn of time that, you know, sports are everything and the boys' schools are very competitive. You know, we can't listen from anyone from this particular school, because, you know, that kind of thing. But for the most part, you know, we can break down those barriers by just getting them together. And as you said, you know, I mean, I've been doing this for about 5 years. Monica's just learning the ropes at this point, but I've had to work really hard to build those trusting relationships with teachers, and it helps that I was a teacher because I can relate to them in a lot of ways, and I've taken a lot of time to build those relationships, and it's kind of, it has snowballed to other relationships in the schools. So it's one of those things that just, it takes time, but it can be done.
What is your grade writing on your team? Who writes the grades?
I do some of it. We found a terrific company of 3 women, the grant builders of Buffalo, and I've collaborated with them on the STEAM grant more than anything else, but I've done the rest of it.
So I'm curious, I mean, Buffalo faces the same challenges as I think any Midwestern school, especially Cleveland has a large number, we have one of the largest numbers of independent and religious-based schools, as well as really strong public schools. So it's interesting, part of what I hear is that schools really want to be a part of this because they get funding, but then I also heard you talk about that you may add charter schools. So how does that merge? Because the larger you become, the smaller that pot of money becomes, because I know foundations also are limited into the amount of money that they're going to give.
Yeah, I think the foundations, particularly the two that have largely supported us, have said, hey, this is great, you know. I think initially Oshai came to us when they were first being formed in the year 1999 and said, well, we want to give to secondary education in Western New York, but we sort of feel like the public schools are a sinkhole that are going to get very politicized and so on. We know you guys can get something done, so we'd like to give something to you and see what happens, all right? I think what's happening now based on our success is that they are urging the charter schools to organize the way we did in any way. The charter schools have really resisted it. One of the reasons they've resisted it is charter schools are largely formed on thematic ideas, or they have founding heads that have kind of really championed it, and they don't want to share it all. Getting them together, at least in Buffalo, has been very problematic. So what we've just talked about a little bit is that the foundations really want to help the charters. Could they be under the same umbrella? Maybe. I think there's going to be, almost like you suggest, like a pushback from my private school heads that are going to say, wait a minute, we don't want to divide your time among those charters. We got enough on our plate here, we may not get as much money, so don't do it. Some of the charter school heads have said, well, yeah, but you've already got a proven formula, maybe you could help us as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, that issue has been brought up.
How many students are you placing annually through the scholarship opportunity?
Well, it's just, it's one per school, so there are, at any given time, 64 Oshai scholars. And then the Cullen will bring another 5, so we're up to 70 as a result.
And is Buffalo Prep your partner who's helping to recruit students for the summer STEAM camps? Or how are you recruiting students for that opportunity?
Yeah, so yeah,
That's a great question.
It's really, that is a hard thing to do because we subsidize those summer programs through the grant, so it's, you know, we only charge about $25 for a week for an all-day camp, which is a pretty lucrative deal.
Yeah.
So we've resisted from like putting it in the newspaper because it would fill in about 10 seconds. And so we've been trying to do more grassroots. So Buffalo Prep is one of those places that we go to, and I would say a majority of our students do come from there. But then again, we have that kind of snowball effect where then they tell their friend's friend, and then that's how we've kind of built that particular program up. I think that's the lunch bell.
I think that's it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.